Hi, I'm John Giesick, and welcome to the C-Suite Sherpa podcast, where we shine a spotlight on business experts and resources that you should know. Today, we have a special guest, Laurie Barkman, who is the Business Transition Sherpa, and they specialize in helping business owners grow, scale, and exit. Welcome, Laurie, to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about what you do and the customers you serve.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be with you. Yeah, I work with business owners who are in the throes of it. Maybe their business is in 5 years old, 7 years old, and they are feeling trapped. They're feeling like they want to grow. They're hitting a wall, and they need to find the freedom that they sought after, to be when they were a founder or a business owner in the first place. So many people feel that trap. They feel like they're on this journey, they're on this treadmill, and they're looking for support. So what we do is we help them unpack a lot of that. How do we have a less owner dependent business? I've created a masterclass called the Endgame Entrepreneurship Masterclass. And what we do is we work with owners in a 8-week intensive to get them started. And then from there, it expands to group advisory. We really go deeper on a lot of these topics. So it's an homage to the word Sherpa, right? We are with you on your journey. And you can certainly get the class on its own, but I think the real value is having a peer groups who want to deep dive into all the topics that you want to, and getting that peer group support as well as a structured, facilitated process with business transition Sherpas.
Oh, that's fantastic, Lori. I remember we're talking to business owners, and it's amazing how sometimes, and you mentioned it, that you have to go back and remind the business owner why he started the business. I mean, most of the owners started for freedom, and then that goal gets lost along the way because they get so deep into their day-to-day activities. Is that what you're finding?
Absolutely. There's some real basic blocking and tackling that we start with to help people see in their day to day what they could do differently. A very simple start, stop, continue exercise as an example. But it's very eye-opening. My clients are like, "Oh, that's one of the favorite things that they do," because they can easily see, wait, why am I working on this? I'm not good at it. Or why am I working on this? I don't like it. You know, and there's ways to delegate. People think, oh, I have a small team. I can't delegate. Well, yes, you can. Let's talk about options, whether it's virtual assistants or whether it's automation or other solutions that we can think of to really help take things off your plate that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of business owners who are doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. And there's that saying that says, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should be doing it. And delegation is hard for us control obsessed business owners.
That's right.
So, Lori, when people call you, what is the main problem that they're calling you with? I know typically it's just a symptom, but what are they calling you? They're saying, "Hey, Lori, I need help with." What's the detail that they're throwing up for you?
Well, there's a couple of categories. There's really three. One is the prisoner. They feel like they're just tied in with their business. They're on this treadmill of trial and error. They feel like they're trying a lot of things. It's just not working. Their growth is stagnant. Their health is waning. Maybe they're facing a divorce. There's just a lot of negativity in their world, and they know they need to do something different or better. So those people, that immediate need of, hey, help me just get on the right track. I'm off track to help me get on the right track. Then there's the people who are really investing in their business. They want to continue to grow. They see it as more of a positive. They're really pulling for their future, and they see their business as an asset to grow in value. So they're doubling down on growth. And those folks tend to be just sponges. They just take it all in, and they want to really focus on the short-term growth, but they also recognize that there's long-term value. And what I love about that type of client is they're not in pain, right? They're looking for the gain. And they really want to understand what are those key focus areas that they should be working on. So working on the business, right? Not just in the business, so that they can double, triple the value over time. And then the third category are people who are a little bit closer to their exit end game. They might be there from an age or life stage standpoint. So maybe they're in their 60s, maybe some of them are in their 70s. And so those folks are typically going to segue into help me make a business transition plan, or if they know they want to have an internal transition to family or to employees, close key stakeholders, that That is a definite question I get. And then the other question is, well, I want to sell in a year. What do I need to be doing right now? And so, John, I'm also a certified mergers and acquisitions advisor with Stony Hill Advisors. And so, what I do is I work from transition to transaction and from giving, sharing the guidance of how to increase, grow, and scale, and then also supporting them from a transactional standpoint, which makes the experience working with me and my team really enhance not only the value as we build this business, but also when we're ready to have a transaction, we're coming at it, helping you see your business through a buyer's lens, which is really invaluable because everybody's got rose-colored glasses. Everybody thinks their baby's beautiful. And we tell them how it's not. Not that your baby's always ugly, but maybe parts of the baby are ugly. And you need to hear that because when you have time on your side, you can focus and work on these things to improve the value. But as we get a shorter and shorter time horizon, like the third group I mentioned, where they're saying, oh, I'm a year out, we really don't have time to optimize the business anymore. We have what we have. And it's the other two groups that when time is on their side, which it usually is, because let's say they're in their 40s or 50s and they still want to build value, they want to build with the end game in mind. That's the focus of what we work on with them. And it's really powerful.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. When I'm dealing with business owners, and I wanted to ask you this, what percentage of business owners that call you up saying, "Hey, I'm ready to sell or I'm ready to exit," are any of those actually ready? And how do you differentiate the owner being ready versus the business being ready?
The owners are typically ready when they call and say, I'm ready to sell. Then they're typically, of that mindset that they're at that place. The business is not always as ready as we'd like it to be because they haven't done the work, most likely, right? You and I in the education that we're doing are trying to get more and more people to be proactive. And as we build the business, we're going to build it with our end game in mind. And many business owners who are in the baby boomer life stage have not done that. This has been a lifestyle business for many people, or they just kind of always done what they've done and they got what they got. So it is a bit tricky. There was an accounting firm who called and said, I'm interested in selling. I did an initial valuation of the business, and he kind of did a quick back of the envelope of, well, what would it take for him to invest to continue to grow and optimize? And for him, that ROI calculation didn't pan out in my favor. For a client to develop as a client in the shorter term and longer term, I think he's probably going to close. And I think that's a reality for many really, firms that let's say are under 5 million in revenue, where they just can't be big enough for somebody to be interested in buying them. And then there's a risk presentation with the employees that they have. A lot of times, John, I hear these terrible stories. It's sad where they've hired these key employees, the key employees they've mentored and grown through the years. And the owner, we'll just call them Gen 1 to keep it simple, they have a vision that this key employee is going to be Gen 2. Meanwhile, Gen 2 wasn't hired for that. They were hired to be a good soldier, right? They weren't necessarily hired because they wanted to be an owner. And being an owner is a totally different mentality. You can just do a simple test to ask one of your employees, hey, if I bonus you $50,000 in cash, would you take that money and go buy a nice vacation or a boat? Or would you take that money and if I offered you the ability to buy shares in the business? And it's a very telling response which way they go, right? And we don't interview for that. We interview for other things. And it's a real challenge, especially and I work with a lot of technical firms, engineering, architecture, engineering services, e-commerce, where there's this technical nature to the business and it's complex. So yes, there could be a third party interested in buying it, but a lot of times we presume that there's an internal solution. And many, many times they're not. That's why I wrote the book that I wrote, the Business Transition Handbook. And one of the main chapters is, hey, if you're contemplating family or employee transition, you've got to really be communicating and proactive about this. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad when again the clock's running out, especially if there's a health issue or divorce, there's something that's really pulling you out of the business in a negative way. And there's sharks in the water, there's chum in the water when if a buyer is going to see that. But also, a lot of times these businesses just won't sell. So they have to be attractive, they have to be transferable, and they have to be sell ready.
Yeah, and I can imagine if they're talking about Gen 2 being a family member, there's a whole nother set of issues that you have to deal with.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, Lori, in your industry, what do you think is going to be the biggest hurdle that you're going to have to overcome in the next 2 to 5 years?
I think for business owners, in the next 2 to 5 years, I think a lot of it's going to be economic, driven, the economy. Um, there's a lot of hesitation in the short term about interest rates still being pretty high and impact will that have. There are some economists forecasting a depression by 2030. So that is looming out there as a potential threat. And so what will happen to the M&A environment in 5 years? I don't have a crystal ball, but I think the biggest risk to business owners is probably, those financing options if they start to dry up, because what will happen is that what do buyers want, right? Buyers want a risk-free business purchase, which of course we all know doesn't exist. So they have to balance the price they pay and the value that they get, right? To quote Warren Buffett. And they're going to all everyone's looking for the best deal. They all kind of describe, well, we want this size EBITDA and we want, these characteristics of the management team and so on and so on. Well, if the inventory, just like in a home purchase, if the inventory goes down, what happens? Well, some of those prices are going to go up, but the other ones just won't sell because they won't be attractive in a high credit market where there's risks to repayment and things. You've got to really make the numbers work out.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that if your business is borderline sellable now, with a tough economy or some things that may be coming in the future, it may jump into the unsellable category.
It could. Yeah, because it'll present risk and it might still be sellable. It might not be at the price that you want to get for it. And it also might entail lots of other things tied up in the transaction that you might not otherwise want, like earnouts, a seller note, and things of that nature.
Yeah, earnouts. I just shudder when I hear the word earnout.
Well,
It's
we could do a show just on that. I don't always shudder because I think earnouts can serve a good purpose and they're not always horrible. It's about having the right deal team, surrounding you with the right deal team. I start with the transition side, right? But then of course I want to support clients on the transaction and I advocate to have the right deal team around you to structure these transactions in the best way we can, to your advantage.
Yeah, you figure out how to a way for an owner not to have to do an earnout and have to call somebody else. Yes, boss. That's a big 5 star in your category, Lori.
Yeah, but again, if we're starting the process so that you have a runway ahead of you that you're excited about. I just had a client close a deal. He sold to a strategic and he's excited to stay on for another 3 years. It was not a problem for him to commit to the earnout. He was excited about that. He was aligned with the growth strategy and he wants to be part of that. So that's the other reason, right? There's no bad health, there's no shortness of his, endgame cycle where he's like, oh, I gotta punch out. I'm so tired. No, he's excited, right? Leave enough runway there that, give yourself some options. So that's why, again, I think for you and me and the work we do, is really getting people to understand that creating an exit plan is really just business planning. And why not have a more valuable, enjoyable business to run while you still own it and give yourself some options on the other side?
Yeah, those are great points, Lori. We're working with business owners who want to get out, and sometimes, in your efforts, you create an actual business that they really enjoy running, and it's taking up less time, and they change their mind and say, you know what, maybe I'll stick around for a little bit, and that softens the blow if there's an earnout involved. So yeah, I appreciate that. Lori, we're going to do a lightning round to let some of the viewers get to know you a little bit personally outside of the business world. So I'm going to run through some easy questions. You willing to play along for a couple minutes?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, great. So I'll start off with the easy ones, Lori. Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee for sure.
For sure. How about cats or dogs?
Dogs, no question.
All right. And what about a favorite quote? Maybe something you got printed off, hanging on a monitor or frame somewhere, something that really impacted you. You got something that you reflect on?
Yeah, there's a quote from Jim Lovell. He was on the Apollo 13 um, mission, and he said there are people who watch things happen. There are people who make things happen. There are people who wonder what happened. And this quote was hanging above the chairman's door. And when things were tough in the business, I was a CEO, I was running one of the business units, and he'd look at me and say, "Which one are you?" And of course, I say, "Well, I make things happen," right? And I use that quote a lot with clients. We're not going to just sit back and watch. We got to make it happen.
Yeah, that's great. And the realization is you get to pick. It's your choice. So, Lori, if you ever get a chance to relax, you sound super busy, but if you ever get a chance to relax, plop down on the couch in front of the TV, what are you watching?
80s movies, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, top of the list. I have an original movie poster right over there. Yeah, Ferris, stay
Ferris
Ferris.
Bueller?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
That's that's awesome. I still remember the car scene where the car goes off the cliff.
Absolutely.
What about a book? If you had one book to recommend to somebody, or maybe a current book you're reading now, what comes up for you?
Okay, well, there's two. So one is a book I read in college called The Tao of Pooh. So excuse me, TAO, Tao, Taoism, and Pooh as in Winnie the Pooh. And this book is a business book, but it's written, it's Winnie the Pooh, right? And one of the characters in the book is someone we never see. We never see them because they're too busy, they're never around. And there's a sign above their door that they read wrong, right? But their interpretation of what the sign says is busy Baxon. The busy Baxon's never home. But it says busy back soon. And for a long time, I was the busy Baxon. And then I realized I don't want to be the busy Baxon. I want to focus. I want to give things my time and attention. Like I can think about having a good garden, or I can actually do my garden, right? And so there's that. So the Tao of Pooh, I think, is a good read. It's short. And then a book that I'm reading from a business standpoint is I think it's called The $1 Million Consultant, something like that. And it's a really good influence on me and doing what I do. I've really been trying to eat my own dog food, as the saying goes, to create a scalable business model and create a scalable business. And, this is my second part of my career. It's my back nine, if you will. And I, for a long time, was in corporate America and I was in startups, and now having my own business is just so exhilarating. And I can really relate to the business owners that are trying to make a go of it, right? And have an end game in mind. So that's what I'm really passionate about, and that's what I'm working on.
That's awesome. What about bucket list items? Maybe share with us something that was on your bucket list that you already got to check off, and maybe share with us, what's on that bucket list that you know you're going to accomplish.
I have been really trying hard to get better at tennis. My husband's a really good tennis player, and my kids like outpaced me, in high school pretty easily. So I've wanted to get better so that the four of us could play tennis together. So I'm working on that. That's going well. And then the other things are more travel related, going to certain places, having a little more time to go and see friends or see new places we haven't gone to. So this summer, we're planning a road trip in Norway, and we're going to see some fjords, and I'm thinking I'm going to probably see some trolls too. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, travel is not on my list, but I love hearing people's travel stories. That's awesome. So, Lori, let's wrap up with this. So, if you'd be willing to share with us, tell us one of the biggest obstacles you had to overcome to have the success you're having, and maybe share the lesson that you learned from it.
I think the biggest thing for people who become entrepreneurs later in life is to let go of things that, if they're not working, let them go. And it's not a failure, it's a learning. And I've really pushed myself on that. And continuing to learn would be the other aspect. I've gotten additional certifications. I got my MBA about 25 years ago, but that doesn't mean I know everything, right? Just to have those letters after your name. And I wanted to get certified in mergers and acquisitions. So I did. I wanted to get certified in how do companies build value, and I got certified on the Value Builder platform. Um, and I also got certified as an exit planning advisor. Those were additional things that I did them because I wanted to. And I'm at the life stage where I'm still learning. There's so much to apply and add value for my clients. And that's the number one thing is just we can't just sit still. We just can't. And so being an entrepreneur in this back nine, as I call it, I think is a lot of fun. I've been learning a lot about AI and ways to use different tools for small businesses that I think not only enhances my business, but it enhances my clients as well.
Yeah, that's great. AI is the next thing that I'm tackling as well. I'm a little bit more of a laggard than, a industry leading edge, but yeah, I realize that I will get left behind if I don't hop on the AI bandwagon. So, Lori, people are going to watch this. They're going to want to reach out to you. What's the best way for them to find you?
My website is btsherpa.com. And there's all kinds of goodies they can get on my website, including my book is available as a free download if they want to get a copy of the Business Transition Handbook. If they prefer to get it on Amazon, that's where they can buy it. Of course, it'd be lovely. But if they want to get a digital download, they're welcome to grab it. And a shorthand landing page is btsherpa.com/book.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that with our listeners, Lori, and I appreciate you coming on, and I'm looking forward to connecting again soon.
Oh, thanks so much, John. It was great to be with you today.